Welcome to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins. Let's Get Into It is a safe space to have real conversations that are meant to uplift, encourage, and let you know you are not the only one dealing with life. Each episode of Let's Get Into It is designed to provide illuminating and thought-provoking information on a variety of topics. In fact, no topic is off limit. If you would like to see a topic discussed, please feel free to make a recommendation. My special guest and I will have a great time discussing topics that the mainstream media wouldn't dare discuss. We will bring these conversations to you with an open mind, respectfully, from different perspectives, and most importantly, with love. Thank you for joining me and my special guest. Now, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Let's Get Into It. I am Sherelle Higgins, your host. And today I thought this conversation would be very timely, considering all that is going on in our country. If we think back to the housing crisis that we had in 2008, it made me wonder if we're headed for that same type of situation with the way that the economy is going, the prices of houses, the tariffs on the lumber, and all of the things, right? And so, are we headed in that same direction? Did we not learn anything from the housing crisis of 2008? Well, I certainly did. And I want you to know that my guests today are experts in their fields, right? They have been doing this type of work for a long time. And I am fortunate enough to have sisters in my circle that I can call 15 minutes before this podcast starts and say, hey, can you jump on this podcast with me? Now, of course, I'm going to get some sarcasm with it, but it's okay. I'll take that. But they agreed to get on because I think that, with this particular conversation, you need to have the two parts to it. One is from the real estate side, and the second part is from the mortgage loan side. And so, without further ado, I will introduce you to our resident real estate agent, Jennifer Dorn, agent for the people. And also, I'd like to bring to the stage our resident mortgage loan officer, Marquita Woods, Queen of Mortgages. Welcome, Marquita and Jen.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for inviting us as your guest.
Oh, thank you all for being here. So, let's get this conversation going. So, just so that people have a some understanding of how long you've been doing this, Jen, how long have you been a real estate agent?
This month will mark 22 years.
Wow, and that's a long time for a real estate agent because a lot of people seem to think that real estate is easy work and it's big paydays and that they could just jump in and sell houses and make a whole lot of money and it'll feed itself. And so at some point, we're going to talk about the grind that comes along with being a real estate agent and how you were able to sustain a career and a business as a realtor for 22 years. And Marquita, how long have you been a loan officer?
Too long. That's the most appropriate answer. So I got Jen beat just by a little bit in August, actually 23 years.
Oh, see, that's a long time too. And so that's really good because that means you all are tested, tried, and you have succeeded in these two occupations. And a lot of times I know, particularly with first time home buyers, they don't really understand the separation of duties between a realtor and a loan officer. And so let's start there. If I'm a first time home buyer, who should I contact first? Should I contact a mortgage loan officer and get pre approved, or should I contact a real estate agent and let them walk me through a process? Jen.
Okay. Well, again, the first thing you have to do is you have to know if you've got some buying power. But most often they'll contact the realtor first. And we sit down, we have a buyer consultation. And one of the first things on my list is you need to talk to a loan officer, because we need to understand where you are, your financial ability, or your buying power. So if you reach out to the realtor first, we sit down. A good realtor is going to sit down and consult with you about the whole home buying process, but it does start with getting the financing.
Okay, and then Marquita, when they reach out to you as a first-time buyer, what does that process look like for you?
So, as mentioned, I'm looking to assess buying power, but also just get an idea of people's overall scenario. So, interestingly enough, when we hear real estate, it's a buzzword. Everybody has something to say about how you can get something done, but it really is specific to the person. So,
Mhm.
I start off with a consultation, but within that consultation, by the end, my ultimate goal is to turn it to CIA, which is credit, income, and assets. So we start with a soft review of someone's credit report, and then we take income, assets, and we come up with basically a buying plan. So people try to make buying a home uh, like a commodity, a transactional type thing, but it really is a specific plan and more of advising on, what's the best route based on your specific scenario.
Okay, and if I'm a first-time home buyer and we have done the CIA, the credit, the income and assessment, um, what type of credit score is ideal for a first-time home buyer?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, Ideally, for us, we like to see a 620. You actually have some loan types that don't have a credit score requirement, but most lenders want you to be at least 620 to get yourself started and in the game. But the higher the credit score and more options, possibly better rate. But baseline is a 620 FICO score. And I have to add that in because everybody gives a credit score nowadays. You can get a credit score from Credit Karma. You can get a credit score from the actual bureaus, your bank. Heck, I think Dominion Power might even give you a credit score at this point, but they are using a different scoring model. So that's why it's important when you're assessing where you are that you do talk to an actual loan officer. We're using what's called a FICO model, and they're using what's called a Vantage score, and that starts
Mm,
so a Vantage score. So basically, their scoring model is different, even though all of the data is the same, and it's likely definitely going to be different when you talk to a lender.
okay, and so now that I have my CIA, I know how much house I can afford to buy. Then I go back to the realtor, and at that point, am I getting a pre-approval letter, Marquita?
Yes, you are
Okay,
getting a check, is what I say. If the pre-qual letter comes from me or pre-approval letter comes from me, it's like money in the bank. So now you're able to shop with confidence that this is my price range, and as long as I stay in there, that I should be able to make it to a settlement. So yes, we issue two different things: a pre-qualification letter or a pre-approval letter. At the end of the day, it's just vetting that for sure this person can finance a home, and we're not just, having Jen walk people through the house and they totally can't afford it.
okay. And so, Jen, now that I have my pre-approval, pre-qualification letters, I come back to you. I say I can afford. Let's say, for example, we all live in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and as we know, this is one of the higher cost of living areas in the country. And so, let's say Marquita has said that I can afford to buy a house that costs about a $500,000. What do you do next?
So as I mentioned, initially we sit down, we have that buyer consultation. And part of the buyer consultation is I'm learning about your needs, what's your why, what's your motivation, how soon do you need to be in your home? What do you need out of the house, or what type of home do you need? You're approved for that $500,000 house, but okay, what location, bedroom, bathroom. So now what we do is we just start breaking it down. I start figuring out all the things that are important to you in that new and the new home that you purchase for you and or your family. And we put together a plan to start looking at those homes. I'll start setting up searches. I do a deep dive on, just she says CIA, so I do a little CIA too. So I start doing my little investigation on finding the right property that meets your needs. We talk about what that looks like. When we get out, we start looking at homes. Especially on the initial time out together, I get a feel for your likes, your dislikes, and again, in that pre-qual, for us, that pre-count or that counseling, I learn what's important, what are must-haves, and what things you could possibly live with, you would live without. Oh, I got to have a garage. I got to have a garage, and I got to live in the city of Alexandria. And it's got to be a detached home. Well, I hate to tell you that just ain't gonna happen in the city of Alexandria. Any event. So I start doing a deep dive, finding those properties that would be a match for you. We get out, we start looking at homes. I get a feel for what, some areas, once you start looking at houses and the things that you may learn that, well, this is important to me, or maybe I can do without having that actual car garage because I really want this neighborhood. And I can deal with the assigned parking in my, assigned parking space, or, maybe I got to have a fireplace, but, maybe I can actually do without that fireplace. So those are the things that we do. We put together a list, and as we go through, we talk about, what it is and finding that right home. And, when you walk through that door, when you found the right one. And after we've gone out, I then get a sense of what is right for you, especially because you learn the person and their needs as you get to, know them. You get very close. You build that, intimate sort of relationship as their realtor, learning more about them and their needs and their wants.
And so, okay, so we find a house, right? We've gone out, we've looked at 25 different houses. I hope it doesn't take you that long to find the one. But sometimes, some people are indecisive. And so we find a house and we want to put a contract on that house. Talk us through, Jen, what that process is like.
Well, so once we found the right house, then I reach out to the agent. I reach out to the listing agent, find out what the seller's needs are or what the seller is looking for in the offer that they want on their house. Now, obviously they want their asking price.
Mm-hmm.
I do research. I go back now, we found the house. I go back and I start looking at what are the actual comparatives. Meaning, what are the other homes selling for that are similar or like the one that you've chosen? I talk to that agent. A lot of times not a lot of time, maybe 60% of the time, they will share the information in a portal that's within our Bright MLS of, the buyer's, what the seller is looking for. They'll have an outline based on, whether or not that seller needs to rent back, meaning if they can sell the house and they need to stay in the house, or they need to delay the settlement or things like that. And as I said, I'll do a deep dive on what the comparables look like. Are they in line with price based on the market? Then we tailor the offer to their search, tailor the offer to that information, and trying to, be as competitive as we are. Now, we talk, there's so many different facets to it. Like, for example, back in 2022, the market was hot. Things were flying off the market. Where we are today, and then you also consider the seasons. I've talked, there's seasons. Real estate has seasons, and we're in a time of year where things tend to slow down a bit. So I have to take all of that into consideration when we're structuring your offer. Are the sellers giving closing costs? And as we've moved out of that market, that 2022 market where things were flying off the shelf, so to speak, things have started to slow down and things are starting to shift. We see a little slight increase in more inventory. What does that mean for you as a buyer? You may have a little more leverage, some more negotiation. I also like to put a pin there and say, what you listen, what we hear on the news and around us typically is national. Our market, you have to absolutely know where you are, because then you do a little bit more of a deeper dive and know your market on a more micro level versus macro, because some communities may still be hot. So again, I have to take all of that into consideration when structuring your offer. You having more leverage right now, homemade, I look at how many days it's been on the market. That doesn't always indicate that there's a problem with the house, especially again, considering the season where we are in the market. And I might be giving a little bit too much information, but these are the things that a good realtor is going to look at, because I need to know where we are. If the average days on market is 33 and this house has been on the market for 21 days, does that necessarily mean that, oh, it's been on the market for a long time? Not necessarily. So you have to look and understand what all these different dynamics and variables are as we, again, are structuring your offer. We put that together.
So what you're saying is you don't just like just open doors for people and stuff? Like,
oh no, I'm not an Uber agent. No,
oh, okay.
That would not be me.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be this perception, so you just don't like let people in and just let them, go look at houses and talk about the Formica countertops and stuff. That's not.
See, that's what the pre-qualification comes in. So I'm sitting down, I understand what Sherelle's needs are. So when we put that list together, we're not going to go to 27, 25 houses or whatever, because my goal is to narrow down to.
Hey, Jen, we hearing the echo. We hearing the echo from you.
I don't know why I haven't changed anything.
Okay, when you lean forward, the echo goes away.
Okay, yep. All right. So yeah, so what we do is how about now? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. All right.
So hold that thought, because we have a question.
Okay.
And the question is, if a client has more than enough cash to put down on the house, however, they have a 500 credit score, how do each of you handle that situation?
That's a great question.
That's for Marquita.
Yeah, I'll say that wouldn't be something that Jennifer would handle unless a loan officer is able to come up with a scenario for that borrower. And believe it or not, 500 is a very low credit score, but you are able to do some financing that's called, I would just say out the box without using terms that are, industry jargon, but you do have financing now that will allow for a large down payment to offset the lower credit score. However, there still needs to be verified that there is an ability to pay, no matter what caused that 500 credit score. And honestly, for me, in situations like that, sometimes I try to figure out maybe what can I do with this money to raise the score, because you have to know that the further away you are from a 620, the higher the interest rate's going to be, just because you have this money to put down. So yeah, we can put, like Jen said, a little pin in that.
Okay, well, here's another question for you, Keita.
Sure.
Are there programs for first-time home buyers?
Yes, there are national programs that can be used, and then there are programs all the way on the state level, and then all the way down to the county level. So every part is different. For instance, there's a very specific program for Prince William County that offers money up to, actually it's a crazy number, about 30% down and 3% closing help, but you have to be in a certain income bracket to take advantage of that. But then when I flip over to Stafford, I don't have anything specific for first-time buyers. So in that case, I would look at a program that's statewide, which is actually what I use a lot for first-time buyer, because it encompasses the entire state and it's not so restrictive on income to receive help or to receive some type of down payment assistance. So yes, ma'am. First-time buyers programs, Virginia, Maryland, and DC, I am very familiar with.
So, Marquita, let me ask you this. What are some common mistakes that people make prior to, or some misconceptions that people have about the home buying process as it relates to a mortgage loan prior to going to settlement?
So we have a nice list of them. That's a great question, some do's and don'ts. And we've even added that page into our actual loan application disclosures. But there's two that have come up consistently over my time as a lender. And one is going out and making big purchases during the process. And when I say big purchases, I mean things that are financed, such as actually buying a new car to park in the garage of the home that you don't own yet. And that means even trading the car in and getting something better, or, the lease is over, getting another lease, or just flat out buying a new car. So major purchases are a big no-no. And what happens is, think of it from our perspective. I've, turned in the CIA, and I base my approval based on monthly payments at a specific amount. And now you've gone out and financed something that is more, or financed something that wasn't in my initial assessment. So as a result, that can throw off the debt to income ratio, or how much a lender is comfortable lending now. So that's number one. And then number two is going to seem like, I don't get it. Like, why is this a problem? Is switching jobs, or quitting your job, or being laid off and not letting a lender know. So obviously the last part, yeah, you're laid off, bro. You might, can't do this. But I've had clients actually switch jobs in the middle of the transaction because they were getting a higher paying job, right? So they felt like, why does it matter? I'm getting paid more now. That doesn't necessarily stop a closing, but it certainly will delay it, because this new information needs to be verified by pay stubs, and you need to actually start said job. So those are my two major caveats that, burn my soul when they actually happen, because we've, told you about it. We put it in a disclosure, and so those are two major mistakes that I see happen. And then I don't know, I would say, number three would just be not being able to verify large deposits. So moving a lot of money around, you have money in your mattress, in your safe, and it wasn't in your bank account, but now all of a sudden you're introducing $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, or some amount that's not really consistent with what you get as your pay stub. So if you get 5,000 every 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you just drop 8,000 out of nowhere in the account, that's something else that kind of slows us down. But yeah.
Okay. Can I say that just happened to me today?
Oh yeah. Which part? Which one?
They bought the car. The wife bought the car, and I asked her, she could not afford the house, one of my listings, and I said, "You got to be joking me." And he said, yeah, I told her, I said, did you not educate her? So that goes to the point. You can't just write a contract. It takes so much more than just putting an offer together.
Okay. We have another question. I was going to get to this question, but since it came up, Marquita, what are your thoughts about the 50-year mortgage being floated as an option?
So I am not a fan. So initially when it broke, interestingly enough, this started being talked about, over the weekend, which caused a lot of banter, right? More people have time to have an opinion and see things on social media. So a 50-year mortgage, in my opinion, I don't like it, but I had to actually kind of sit back and try to weigh some things in my thought process about it. The challenge with 50 years is that it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. I understand why they would think that, want to do it. You stretch the payment out longer. Ultimately, that's going to make the payment less. And since affordability in the country is at an all-time low, and specifically in this area, I understand the thought process of trying to give, some way to make the payments less so people can enter home ownership. The challenge is that the amount of interest paid over time is significantly higher. And one of the reasons we want to buy homes is to have equity appreciation. And that's going to be much slower with a 50-year mortgage, because you're mainly paying to interest. Even with a 30-year, the first 5 years of the loan are heavy interest loaded. So a 50-year, the bank kind of wins. But I had to revamp some of my thoughts on this and just say, but even if their appreciation was less, and we continued with our 4% equity appreciation on average year over year, does it still beat renting? And the answer actually is yes. So I had to pull back some on it. I'm not a fan. If I were to advise somebody and use it, I would specifically be using it in a plan of let us get you into the home. And then we need to get out of it. And the truth of the matter is most people either refinance or sell in a 7 to 10 year window anyway. So if it's a way to just get people started, then, maybe I have a little bit more favorability towards it. But, hopefully we can just, get somebody done with the 30 year. But I mean, I get it. Prices are up and stuck.
Well, here's what I thought about it. In my part-time mortgage loan officer role.
Yes.
Some of the statistics, the numbers that I saw that were being broken down, they were talking about on average that you would probably save somewhere between $200 and $250 a month on a 50-year mortgage. And I was thinking about that, right? And I'm like, that's not a lot of money. Like, it seems to me, if you go into a house and let's say your mortgage is $3,000, coming up with the $2,850 is the struggle. It's not the $250. And so I didn't really see the advantage in doing a 50-year loan, mortgage loan. And in addition to that, they're saying now the average age for people to buy their first home is like 40. So you'll be 90 if you never refinance, right? You'll be 90 years old before your house is paid for. Like, that is crazy. And the average life expectancy for women is 81 and for men is 78. So you would never pay your house off. Like, to me, that just sounds like a catch-22.
Yes, that's crazy work. And you're right. But although you say it's only $250, I mean, quite honestly, for that first-time buyer who's going from renting to buying, that $250 actually could be significant because now that might be, the water bill, the gas, and
you can stop at the water bill now.
Okay,
that ain't gonna be your gas and your
okay. Well, okay. So the water bill
and
your
Wi-Fi
streaming and Wi-Fi, something like that, right? And you only get to stream one channel. You can't have YouTube TV. You only get to have Hulu. Yeah, that's it. But that's only
if you cancel Hulu during Jimmy Kimmel situation and they offer it to you for $2.99.
Yeah, and then you keep it for 12 months and then switch to something else. But that's still a difference maker for somebody that's coming from a situation where they've been renting and that is included. And so some of it is psychological. So like I said, if I did it, it would be to be a starting point, but not to be somewhere that I want somebody to stay. I mean, can you imagine 90 years old talking about I paid my house off? But the reality is, even though most of us don't these days pay houses off anymore anyway, just because our life situations change.
Yeah. And, they also, I read about them talking about robbing people of generational wealth because, if you're going to be 90 before you can pay your house off and your life expectancy is only 81, you're likely to die before you pay that off. And now if you don't have your stuff set up properly, your family could possibly lose out on whatever equity you might have in the house by the time you turn 81.
Yes. I mean, they could. I think you said a very key thing is not having your things set up properly, right? So, the only way that we're going to have generational wealth is to pass assets on to family members the proper way. So as long as it's set up properly, then it's fine. And I mean, honestly, that happens with people with 30-year mortgages that just don't have things, set up the right way to pass the asset along to a family member.
Okay, so we have a question. Mm-hmm. Can someone who has a 30-year mortgage switch to a 50-year mortgage?
They haven't come out with any guidance on this. Quite honestly, I love the fact that it's caused a discussion, but none of this is put in play. But I would assume that you would be able to refinance into the longer term to create cash flow monthly. Now, would I advise somebody to do it? Hell no. But I think you probably would. Just like, people go from a 15 to a 30 or 30 to a 15. I don't see why they wouldn't if they're offering it as a actual financing tool.
Here's a great question for you, Jen. I assume most people are ignorant about purchasing a home. How much time do you spend on educating your clients, or what educational resources do you provide?
That is a great question. I have a ton of stuff. I probably over disclose and over inform. At a minimum, at least an hour on our initial consult. Actually, a minimum of an hour on our initial consult, but sometimes I could go as much as far as 2 hours. It really depends. I do have a buyer guide. I go through an entire guide that talks about, the whole walking them through the process. And again, the very beginning phase of all of that is once we talk about your needs, your wants, what you're looking for, etc., how important the next step before we can even start. It's like I can't take you shopping until you got the money. So you got to go see this lady down there or wherever she is on your screen in order for us to go shopping. I feel like I have the fun job. We talk about, the initial piece of it. I send you over to the bank, Marquita, and then we come back and we go have fun looking for that nice home.
So you just don't like put people in your car and just start driving around and stuff, right? So you really got to work.
So yeah.
Exactly.
Again, I'm not that 22 years. And let me just say this too. It's been 22 years as a full-time, never once been a dual career. And what dual career means is I'm working here and I got that job over here, and my cousin, friend want to buy a house, and then I go put my name on a contract. No. I've been doing this. I don't put them in my car. I'm not an Uber agent. You don't call me up and I'm not
got a license though. So I'm gonna use him. My cousin got a license, even though he worked for the government. I'm gonna use him as my agent. I bet you do run into that, and I don't think people understand the
they think that cousin Benny or Vinny or whoever is gonna get them some kickbacks, or they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. But here's the reality of and where that can be very harmful. You get your cousin out there that doesn't know, and he doesn't know how to negotiate effectively on your behalf, and he doesn't understand, because let's face it, in most cases, real estate transactions are the largest transaction that most people will make in their life. We're talking a $500,000 asset that you're attempting to purchase. And yes, people are very ignorant. That's why you have to take time on the front end to educate them and to provide them with as much resource about the whole home buying process and really walking them through it. But working with your cousin who works part-time, I don't know if they can't have a job at the government. Can they, Rail? And still do a side job.
You can. You just have to get ethics approval, and the chances of you being able to be a real estate agent if you work for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, that's negative. Probably not going to happen because that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, but then your cousin gets you out there, and all of a sudden he failed to disclose something, or he missed a deadline. And all of a sudden you go through that home inspection and there was a major issue with the electrical or the plumbing or something, and he did not get that addendum back in time, or he called homeboy handyman who was not really a licensed home inspector that went through and checked the box and didn't thoroughly look through that home. And then all of a sudden y'all get to the final walkthrough and your purchase, they buy the house and there's a major electrical problem. And then now they're coming back at you and you can be sued. No, I take my license very seriously, and I don't have a problem telling you we are not a good fit. All money ain't good money. And no, you're right, Sherelle. This ain't no just get rich quick. Every time somebody says to me that they're thinking about getting their real estate license, I kind of cringe a little bit, not because I view it as competition, not at all, but I have to educate them too. And I may come off as Debbie Downer or negative Nelly, if you will, but I want you to see this is a real job. And funny enough, because you know us personally, Sherelle, there really aren't any days off in real estate.
There really isn't.
There are no days off. And you get your cousin who wants to go on a week away and truly turns off his phone, and you're in the middle of negotiation, or you think that they've sent your contract over, and again, missing that deadline, and they're not responding to you in a timely manner, and there's a major problem with the financing or something, and you don't respond effectively, somebody's going to get sued. And you've got some money at risk that you put in. I like to call it your layaway money that you put at risk. and you could potentially lose that. And then cousin Vinny getting ready to get sued, or he's a whole lot of people. It could just be a cluster mess.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's a good segue into this, Jen, because as you were just saying, people think this is a get rich quick scheme, right? And they don't understand the amount of time that I see you all putting in on a daily basis. Like, this is not something a hit or miss. This is not something you do today and then you don't do nothing else for another 2 weeks. Like, I see you all grinding. Let's talk about that grind. Marquita, talk about your grind. Like, in order for you to get paid, you have to have loans closed. And talk about the grind that it takes to get those loans to closing.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. And ultimately, it's kind of like, you see the person's body up above water, they look like they smooth, but underwater, or the legs are just flapping. And it's just because a whole lot's going on underneath. It look all smooth on the top, but it's a lot going on in the background. I think because it's dealing with people and time, it's not like a 9 to 5. So it definitely is a grind. And if you want to be long-term in the business, you have to make yourself available when people are available. Sometimes that's at 9 a.m. Sometimes that's at 9 p.m. because the client is in another country and they're coming to this area, or they have to work overtime, or they only can talk on Sunday. So you possibly do have a situation where there's no days off. Now, as I've gotten more seasoned in it, I try to have some boundaries, but for the most part, real estate doesn't wait on you. So I can't say, hey, I'm a banker and I work at Wells and the bank closes at 5. Don't call me until after 5, because what's going to happen is between 5 and 9, they have written the contract. Somebody else gave them the pre-approval letter, and they're off to the races. So it does have flexibility, but it is you're on more than you're off sometimes in these two industries, because you are dealing with people.
And Jen, talk about your grind, because I know you have a team of people that you work with or that work with you. And so your grind is even that much more, because you're not only responsible to your clients, but you also have a team that you're responsible for.
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. No, seriously, right. Truthfully, I always say every day I wake up unemployed, because after one transaction closed, I'm out there trying to find another one. So you're right, it doesn't stop. Yes, we work when you guys are off. So that 9 to 5, that's when I'm either investing in myself, learning, understanding, knowing the market. See, that's another piece that we didn't talk about, because there's so many facets to this to be really above average realtor. But my grind is, I mean, I wear Marquita. We wear we have to counsel people. We have to deal with their emotional roller coasters. We've got to manage expectations. We've got to manage and deal. We have to be sounding boards. So that's just dealing with the client. But that same thing holds true for for my team, if you will. So I have to always be innovating. I've got to make sure that I stay ahead of the curve, not only for my clients, but for my team. I've got to make sure that what they're doing, remember cousin Vinny, he ain't on my team. But I need to make sure that his stuff is legit. So I've got to not only make sure my clients are doing, their things are in line, but I've got to make sure my teams, their contracts are correct. If they have questions, I've been affectionately called Mama Jen, because I am. I mean, like this is my family. I got to make sure their stuff is tight and that they're not putting out bad stuff or information or mishandling their clients, because ultimately it trickles up. So I'm ultimately responsible. So I need to make sure they're fine. I've got to continue to educate them. I've got to do their one-on-ones. We've got to plan. We've got to make sure they're setting the right expectations and they're saying the right things when they're out in the street. So it never stops. It really doesn't. You're always on. And even if, for example, now the benefit, thank God, for having a team, and I'll say for the agent, for the people team, and I like to call us a SEAL team. we support one another. So even if I'm away, or we've got a team member right now whose family had an emergency and they had to step away. So we all jump in to manage and make sure that nothing gets dropped that's on that person's plate. So we all support one another, and that's the benefit of the team. But at the end of the day, as a team lead, you just gotta, you got more weight on your shoulders, and there is never you just don't turn it off.
Okay. Jen, I really like that though, that you said, that basically every day you're unemployed. I mean, even if the loans close, once they're done, then you got to bring some more in, right?
I'm always out there.
I gotta keep killing so that I can eat. So yeah,
I gotta keep hunting.
I've been furloughed right with y'all. I'm telling you, I've been furloughed with y'all.
Correct.
Like we in this thing together.
Correct.
So, Marquita, we have a question for you. How is student loan debt impacting the ability to qualify for a good interest mortgage loan?
I don't know what the definition of a good mortgage is, but I will say the challenge with student loan debt for us is that you have to count some type of payment in your qualification, even if those loans are deferred or in forbearance, and you have to still count a minimum payment. So what happens with that, depending on the amount of the student loans, it has an impact on how much you can qualify for. So someone with, 6 figures in student loans that wants to buy a house that's $400,000, because we have to count a payment in our calculation, maybe they only can buy $350,000, right? And that's problematic because honestly, we need to be able to be approved for the highest amount possible within your budget and what you can afford in this area. So that's the main difference, is that in the past, if your student loans were deferred for at least 12 months, we didn't count a payment. And what happened was, you already know, you can defer them as long as you can keep trying to defer them, but at some point they're going to come into play. And those payments start coming into play. And the data suggests that because lenders didn't count a payment, people may have bought more than what they could, handle. And now the payments are in play and they are feeling like their cash flow is stretched. So as a safeguard, now you have to count a minimum payment on the actual loan type, unless you're a veteran. So VA still allows for, if the payments are deferred for 12 months, not to actually count a payment. So I think it's, prudent planning. I mean, it's not really about a good mortgage. It's just about being able to, qualify for more because you don't have that payment lingering over your head. But get your income-based repayment plan set up, girl, and then we can add a little more to your buying power. So those are just some inside hacks.
Okay, and can you explain borrowing from your house? I believe it's called a HELOC. What's a HELOC loan, Marquita?
I mean, it's a loan against the equity that you've built up for living in your house. I mean, so it's an equity line of credit. That's the HELOC is the jargon term for it. So basically, you're able to draw money against the equity that you built up to a certain amount. Now, we don't allow people to leverage their houses 100%, meaning if I have $200,000 of equity, I'm not giving you an equity line for $200,000. So we have a formula that we allow. Those rates on those are typically, higher than the actual first mortgage because this loan is being added. Just think of it as going to be in second position. It's a little more risk. However, it is an effective tool because technically equity could be like monopoly money, right? Like 1 year you got 200,000 equity. If the housing market slowed down, it's only 180. And what is good is the equity if you're not putting it to work. That's my thought process. Now, everybody has a different thought process on that. But, I'd say, the equity is in the house. If it's not being used, every dollar needs a job. Then what are we really doing?
Yeah, I think home equity lines of credit just can be looked at as a second mortgage on your home. And you are getting the benefit of being able to use the money that you've built up in your house on something that you want to do or need to do, as opposed to, putting it on a credit card with a 30% interest rate.
Yes. Yes. So what time you coming in the office tomorrow? I like that.
I've learned a thing or two from being around you all. I know enough to be dangerous and enough to ask the right questions.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, Jen, let's talk about people who want to sell their houses. And they come to you and they say, I want to sell my house either to buy a bigger house, buy a smaller house, or just move into an apartment because I'm elderly now and I can't do the upkeep on the house anymore. What is that like?
Kind of the reverse of a buyer wanting to purchase a home, except now I've got the actual asset here. So once again, I go in for what I would either call a listing consultation. And we sit down, once again, find out what are your needs. Are you downsizing? Do you relocate? Why are you doing this? Where are you going? When do you need to be there? All of that. And then what are your financial constraints? What do you owe on the house? I try to work up a net sheet so you kind of have an idea what it looks like once I assess the market. Now I've got to come in. I've already kind of did some preliminary work before I come out to get an idea of your house, your home, or what things are, how they, what the way they're moving in your market, in your area. But nowadays we know most people can just jump on Zillow and put an address in and get a value. But that's AI, right? It does not take into consideration any of your improvements or the neglect. Let's just say that, I'm surprised. You'd be surprised. I've seen some very beautiful homes like the one I'm sitting in right now, or I've gone into some that I thought was a very beautiful home and only to see gaping holes or to just see the neglect. So those are the things that AI does not take into consideration. I look at all the facets of your house. Because I tell people, listen, right now, this is your home. I cannot sell your home, but I can sell your house. And I'm not going to give you a bunch of fluff, and I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear to get that done. So we sit down and we go through, hey, listen, these are the things you have to do. And I try to come through, if you need to paint, you need to paint. If you need to change the carpet, you need to do that. What do we need to do? Sometimes it could simply be the furnishing, because what people don't know, including myself, I've been in my house now 20 years or however, no, 20, we've been here longer. But let's face it, the furnishing and the things were based on the time when we bought it, we improved. People should be improving their home or updating at least every 10 years, 7 to 10 years, because the furnishing that you have in your house can actually make your house look dated. Because you know what I mean? So those are the conversations that we have after we've determined, what needs to happen to get your house market ready. Once we do that, we set the price on your home. If there are things that need to happen prior to a launch, I put together a strategic marketing plan exclusive for everyone's home. Now, there's several things that are different. So yes, Marquita, before you ask, I can hear it coming. No, I don't just throw your house in the MLS, set it and forget it and pray to get an offer. So
don't do that. I was not about to come with no sarcasm. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I wasn't ready 15 minutes before, so I wasn't even about to be sarcastic with you about that. I'm glad to know that you actually do some work, because I'm asking that because I think people think that realtors just say, "Hey, buddy, put a sign out in the yard." So, I'm so glad that you know.
How did I catch a stray? How did I catch a stray in that?
I mean, hey,
no, it doesn't work like
that. Happened was.
No, it doesn't work like that. So I put together a strategic plan. I mean, my marketing is very specific. I don't do whatever. I always like to say that if the crowd is going this way, I'm going against the crowd. If this is where everybody else is going, I'm going the opposite way. I'm not doing what they're doing, because let's face it. Don't quote me on this, but I believe, and Marquita, you might know this stat, 74% of all the realtors in 2024 did this much business. 0. So that goes to show you there are a lot of people that have a real estate license, but they're not really realtors, or really out here boots on the ground grinding it and are efficient in what they do in their craft. This is my career. This is my business. and I take it very serious. It is not a hobby. So yes, Jarrell, when I sit down with you, we're going to talk about all your needs, your wants, and what needs to happen and what time frame. And I'm going to share with you what's happening in the market. Because as a seller, you have to understand you've got 3 options how you want to price your house, because that's really the key: how it looks, the location. We can't change that. We can't change the footprint. We can't change your number of bedrooms, bathrooms. Maybe we could, depending, but your square footage, what is it going to take? We can get your house market ready. But also it comes down to pricing. I have to package your house. I've got to put together the right package so when we launch it, but that does include the price, because people are going to search for a home based on that approval that Marquita gave them. First of all, what's in my price range that have the number of bedroom, bathrooms, and those things that I'm looking for. You have 3 options. You can overprice it. You can price it at market, or you can be, a little aggressive, so to speak, and price it slightly below. To create a lot more interest in your home, right? And with the hopes of getting more than one offer. Pricing it at market, everybody can go on Google, everybody can search now and see what houses are selling for, so they'll have an idea. So if you're above where average is, then people are going to say that's not a real seller. They're not really motivated. And then they're going to wait you out. And that's when you do sit on the market much longer than the days on market. So anyway, so I try to educate you on all of these things so that
in other words, it's the price.
It's
what I'm hearing.
It's got several layers, but
it's got to be priced right. But you got to be working with somebody that's a pricing expert. And you did say something that was kind of scary, and I wasn't totally sure, but to say 70% did zero business and you want them to sell
74%, I believe it was.
74, that's pretty scary. And the other thing that I don't know, did you have data on? We had data on, the average home buyer now is 40, but the average home seller now is like 67. Is that correct?
Well, what's interesting is when we retired 3 years ago, we thought about relocating. And we were looking in several different places, different states. And one of the things I quickly realized was for us to sell our house, we were going to get a smaller house with a bigger mortgage. And it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, why would I sell my house to get a smaller one? Because we want to downsize, but yet my mortgage is still going to be more. So here we are, we're in the same place. And so it just didn't make sense. And so it's important, to talk to a realtor who knows what they're doing, and it is not just a hobby. This is not something they just do as a side hustle. Because you will end up in the long run getting the short end of the stick, and you will end up pissed off saying, if I had known then what I know now, I would have made a different decision. And so it is so important. Okay, so real quick, we have about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to field this question to you all. What made each of you select real estate and mortgage loan as a career? Real quick, Marquita.
I ain't choose mortgage lender. Mortgage lender chose me. I mean, that is a good question. I mean, it kind of it really did happen. I mean, I literally got cut from the Mystics, had a business card of a mortgage company owner that I did a talk for about basketball, and I kept her card, and she was just like, hey, if you ever, want to learn about what I do, give me a call. So I planned on playing that season, and I was actually let go. So I went on an interview in a whole Adidas sweatsuit and got hired. So, and I've been here ever since. So really, truly did, walk into basketball and kind of stumbled into a mortgage company, because let's face it, nobody's writing no essays talking about, I want to be a loan officer when I grow up. Right. So I just think it was, timing. And to this day, people still don't really aspire. You don't get essays that say, in front of the class, I want to be a mortgage lender. So I think lending chose me. And part of it too was in alignment with the fact though, that I did want to be involved in real estate. I just didn't know in what role. So this was it.
Okay, Jen.
I don't even know what. Well, I don't know. I guess I always wanted to get into real estate on the investing side of things. And I can remember being 16 years old watching, I'm really dating myself, Dave Delgado and what's his name, Carlton Sheets and all of them. And I was like so fascinated. And then fast forward, I mean, I just ended up getting my real estate license and it just segued here. And I don't know, that's crazy. So yeah. I will say though, my niece used to say she wanted to grow up and be a real estater.
Okay. I mean, I've had people get a real estater. That's cute.
Today. She's not today, but when she was a little girl, she wanted to be a real estater. Now I get told, Angela, you always working. You always
it's not cute no more.
Business. They give me the
business. Remember back in the day, the realtor had the big billboards and it looked all and all of the cars. So I can see her saying, I want to be a real estater.
So let's talk about this right quick, Jen, before we have to wrap up. I guess about a year ago, there was some new, I don't know, regulation or something passed talking about the commissions that real estate agents can receive.
Girl, that ain't gonna happen in a minute. How much time we have? You should have asked that very early on. I know where you're going with this. There was a lawsuit. Everything changed back in August of 2017. Number one thing, we can no longer advertise what the seller is offering if he's offering any compensation towards the buyer agent's fee, right? Let me just point this out. Here's the reality. Buyers were always responsible for their realtor's fee. It was always. But the seller said, hey, listen, we'll offer compensation to put it into the MLS. That's changed. I'm really giving you a watered down version.
Okay, that's what
now it's all negotiable. It's in the offer when you submit. The buyer's going to say, hey, listen, here's my offer. But by the way, will you contribute X towards my buyer agent's fee? And now the seller's like, well, I don't know. Let me look in how that affects me, blah, blah, blah. It's still being offered in most cases. It's always been negotiable. Commissions have never, ever, ever been set. Now, I know there's some others, conversation around that, but that ain't for this time that I got left. But at the end of the day, it's negotiable between the buyer and the seller. It has always been the buyer's responsibility, but the sellers have, for most part, have agreed to compensate their agent on their behalf, or at least contribute something towards the compensation. And that goes to a strong agent knowing how to negotiate on your behalf, depending on which hat they're wearing. So 22 years, I ain't no punk.
Uh-oh, come on now.
I'm just saying. That's what I mean. For the people. For the people. Yes, that's my gang sign. Somebody asked me, was that a gang? Are you in a gang? Yeah.
I'm in the real estate gang. I heard you was in the Sister Soldier gang.
That's the other podcast.
All right, Sister Soldiers, thank y'all so very much for joining me. Marquita, thank you for coming on with a 15-minute notice. I think it was very much needed, so that people could get the full perspective from both sides of the house. And if you all need a realtor or a mortgage loan officer, Jenny, how can they get in touch with you?
Great question. As you can see, I'm Jennifer Dorn, agent for the people. You can certainly Google me. You'll find me. My website is www.agentnumberforthepeople.com.
And Marquita, how can people get in contact with you?
You can find me on Facebook and IG at Marquita Woods. And as mentioned, my website is queenofmortgages.com. So if you type in Queen of Mortgages, my big head should show up. So I shouldn't be too hard to find.
And let me just tell you all in the audience, you will not be disappointed working with these ladies. They are good at what they do. They are committed to what they do, and they are going to give you the best advice that you will need to help you make informed decisions. Again, thank you all. I'm going to ask you to sit tight so I can do my What the Hell segment, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what the hell. My what the hell is about this 50-year mortgage. What the hell? Like, who the hell wants a 50-year mortgage? Think about that. 50 years. That's longer than you pay for anything else in your life. 50 years. So if you buy a house at 40 and your house will not be paid off until you are 90, how many people plan to work till they're 90? And your life expectancy is 81, so you're probably going to be dead before you turn 90. So are you planning to work until you're 90? Will you be able to afford that mortgage if you retire on a fixed income? Will you be able to afford that if Social Security is still around to supplement your retirement money? Can you still afford that between the ages of 81 and 90? Are you setting yourself up so that your generational wealth can be passed down to your family members, and the government doesn't benefit more from your death and your equity in your house than what your family members are going to benefit? What the hell? Think about it. Talk about it, research it. Don't just listen to what people say on the news or what podcast you listen to or what you seeing on YouTube. I'm a YouTube junkie. Don't just listen to that. Do your own research. Talk to the right people. Talk to Marquita. She has different perspectives. And so it just depends on what perspective you need to make an informed decision. But don't find yourself in a situation where you are 75 years old and you still have to work another 15 years because you just signed up for a 50-year mortgage. What the hell? Thank you for joining me for this episode, and let's get into it. 2 weeks from today is Thanksgiving, so I will not be having a Thanksgiving show because I will be having a good time and fellowshipping with family and friends. I hope you do the same. God bless each and every one of you. I hope no one goes hungry from now until eternity, and especially during the holiday season. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and with that, I'm out. Peace. Thank you for joining and participating in Let's Get Into It. I want to thank my special guest for being brave enough to get into it. Without you, these conversations cannot happen. Remember, different viewpoints, respect, and love are the foundations of Let's Get Into It. If there's a topic you think I should discuss, drop me a recommendation. If you're interested in being my special guest, let me know because we can and will get into it. Have a great day on purpose, and I look forward to your continued engagement and support as we get into it.